Hello, students. Welcome to this lecture. Throughout this lecture, I'll be covering different aspects of part 4 of the textbook, which covers the 6-step policy analysis framework. And this will help you for your capstone policy analysis assignment to be able to integrate different key concepts from the textbook readings. Chapter 7 talks about the 6-step policy analysis framework, which helps you or provides a framework to analyze social policies. The first step is to familiarize oneself with a social problem. The second one is to identify different options. Third step is to compare competing options. The fourth step to draft proposals. Fifth step to seek supporters, funders for proposals. And the sixth step is to make key presentations. So again, today I will be discussing chapters 7 through 9, which will discuss different parts of the analysis framework. And this is important information that I'm trying to condense so that you can integrate it into the capstone analysis assignment. Chapter 7 focuses on the content of analyzing problems in the first step of the policy analysis. And this information will be primarily important for the second part of the assignment, which is the intent and scope of the policy. So when proposals are not based on analysis, they may be dismissed as lacking a substantive base. So that's why it's very important for you to assess and analyze the different policies. Assessment of the social reforms of prior eras suggests that they often did not work because advocates lacked sufficient knowledge about the problems addressed by the reforms. And also analysis minimizes the effects of power, tradition, fuzzy intentions, and intuition. So those are the reasons why we need to become familiar with the social problem or policy issues. And we need to make sure to analyze these problems before proposing any solutions. So in the first step of the policy analysis process, again, the goal is to become familiar with the social problems or issues. So in order to do this, we need to make sure that we ask these questions. And these questions include: what led to this problem or issue? What remedies or solutions have been tried? What is the magnitude of current expenditures on the program or issue? And what adverse consequences does the problem pose for people, communities, and society? So for your capstone project, you need to make sure that you ask these questions in section 2 and you respond to some of these questions so that you can become more familiar with the social issue or problem that you are analyzing. So again, this is also part of section 1 because you're gonna be doing research about what historically has been done. Also, like what has led to this problem or issue, and historically what remedies or solutions have been proposed and implemented, and what is the magnitude of the current expenditure. So again, you're gonna be able to integrate this information in both section 1 and 2 of your paper. In this section, in order to better understand the problem or issue that you're studying, you're gonna have to research to better understand how this problem develops in a specific populations, and how these affected populations or where they go for assistance, how affected populations perceive the problem, and you also will need to examine the different strategies that are currently being used to solve the problem. This is not required, but you can also include the theories that may help you explain why the populations that you're studying may develop these specific problems. And you will need to consider in what specific policy arenas arena remedies for the problem can be developed and enacted. This is a flow chart that is presented in chapter 7. And this is a useful diagram for social problems when developing solutions. And this kind of flow charts are useful since they place problems in a developmental context. As you can see, it has 5 different cells. The first one on the far left, cells represents the prevention arena. So these cells describes the persons who have not yet developed a problem. It shows interventions that can be used to stop persons from developing specific problems, such as identifying at-risk factors, and people who do develop specific problems move into one of the 3 cells in the middle of the flow chart. The middle 3 cells represent the problem development arena, and the top cell describes the person who remains outside the orbit of all organized systems of care. The middle cell describes organized systems of care, such as social agencies, hospitals, clinics, schools, job training programs, and professionals. And the bottom cell describes programs that operate on an empowerment or self-help perspective, such as Alcoholics Anonymous. So what is a relationship among the cells? So people may move among the cells. One person may begin in organized services, they may drop out and then be helped by community-based empowerment programs. Another may solve a problem with the help of family members and move back into the prevention arena. And others use different programs simultaneously. And specific interventions do not work for some, but may be very effective for other people. And finally, the last far right cell represents assessment of outcomes. And so this would be successful outcomes can include eradicating a problem or lessening its severity or impact. Unsuccessful outcomes can include failure to solve or redress a problem or to develop personal coping strategies. And effectiveness of specific programs can be assessed by using a flow chart like this one. So again, it is useful in problem analysis to use a typology of recipients. So this typology of recipients, they can be classified in regards to manifestation of outward behavior, symptoms, or characteristics that differentiate them. Chronicity, so for example, how long recipients have been using services, or by demographic characteristics. So this chapter also talks to us about the reason why we need to analyze the cause of problems. And as we have discussed before, in social work, we like to take an ecological systems perspective, in which we consider not only the personal factors that may be leading to a problem, but we consider a multitude of factors that do not operate singly, but they operate together to produce a problem. And some of these could include physiological problems, personal problems, familial problems, community problems, and societal problems. So again, if a person is experiencing depression, again, we will not just consider the physiological and personal factors, but other factors that may be affecting the client. So for example, if the client is a single mom, she does not have a job and does not have the means to feed her children, then we cannot solely attribute the depression to her physiological and personal factors, but there are other factors beyond those that may be contributing to that depression. So, and the same would be if we're analyzing the problem using a societal point of view. So again, this is information that you will need to consider when analyzing your problem as part of your paper. So we regularly collect and compile various kinds of population-based data that we can use to locate people and to better understand the problem. So these would include the US Census data, local public health offices, various state agencies, municipal and county authorities, and federal agencies. So again, there are different tools that you can use to gather more information about the problem for section 2 of your paper. So chapter A, the title is Placing Policy Proposals and Policy Briefs, and covers steps second, third, and fourth steps of the policy analysis. It has information more specific to section 2 and 3 of your paper, or of your capstone assignment paper, that you can include in there. So step 2 focuses, I'm brainstorming relevant policy, programmatic, and resource options that may define a strategy for addressing the social problem or issue. So this goes with section 3 of your capstone analysis assignment, which focuses on analysis of competing options. Policy advocates use research and theory to develop options that appear promising for addressing or solving the specific social problem. So this is the step number 2 that focuses on doing this identifying of different possible solutions. So when designing policy proposals, advocates must consider a range of issues, which can be placed in 9 different groups. And as they encounter these issues, policy advocates must choose among competing alternatives or options. And I will be using a diagram from the textbook that compares competing options in a few slides. So when identifying issues and policies, we need to think about the following, including the mission of the proposal, how proposal services will be structured, the resource path of a proposal, the content of the proposal, how a proposal's resources will be rationed, how agencies associated with a proposal will be linked, and how proposal services will be linked to communities, and how implementation of a proposal will be monitored, and how a proposal services will be assessed. So again, this is a figure from chapter 8 that helps us conceptualize the different competing options of different policy issues. So the policy advocate maps a proposal by drawing lines between alternative options and a diagram that displays the issues and the competing options. So this diagram illustrates the choices made by the policy practitioner who has constructed the federal shelter program. And the shaded items are the different options chosen by the policy advocate. Also, when thinking about different strategies, we need to think about the development of interventions, and there are many different preventive strategies that have been shown to be effective at the primary, secondary, and tertiary levels. So for example, with primary prevention, it prevents persons from experiencing problems in the first place. So those would more likely involve lifestyle changes. And these early treatment stops the progression of an array of medical, mental health, school, and job performance problems. These interventions should be targeted to persons with identifiable at-risk factors. But there are some factors that may impede prevention, and these would be the problem of efficacy or our ability to predict which people will and will not develop a specific problem. Also, prevention further declines in efficiency if we cannot help individuals actually avert a problem. And also problems in getting people to participate, and efficiency declines when we fail to persuade people who are at risk of falling into the problem. So also the power of a special interest group may impede us from implementing primary prevention. So special interests groups are often well known for opposing these kind of projects, including, like, for example, cigarette companies, automobile manufacturers, abstinence only supporters, and those who operate from a medical model. So in chapter 8, they also discussed step 3, which focuses on analyzing the relative merits of competing options and selecting one of the options. So again, policy analysis should consider more than just a single approach. And the identified problem may have a limited or a large number of potential solutions, and all possible solutions should be identified before selecting and weighing a criteria. When selecting different criteria, we can take into consideration like the value-based criteria, consumer outcome, and economic criteria. So again, we need to consider cost, administrative feasibility, and effectiveness in addressing a consumer's needs. And again, we can select a variety of criteria So value-based criteria are reflected in terms such as equality and equal social justice and various freedoms such as the right to free speech, the right to privacy, and the right to receive accurate and honest information, and the right to self-determination. Consumer outcome criteria define a specific policy effectiveness and ameliorating social problems. In social services, for example, people often scrutinize how various policy actions will affect the client's well-being. Terms such as efficiency, cost, and cost reflect economic criteria. So having limited resources, policy advocates must assess the relative cost of competing options, and feasibility criteria pertain to the political options. An option may seem quite attractive, but may be rejected because it cannot be implemented or is not politically feasible. So for example, some people believe we should decriminalize certain drugs such as cocaine by selling them at low prices in certain regulated stores. However, many practical details confound by the administration of this policy. So for example, if cocaine were to be legalized, what about other countless of other substances, including some that have been even invented? So if cocaine also were to be legalized, the state regulated stores might offer a wide assortment of mood altering substances. And who would pay for this growing or manufacturing, or who would manufacture the currently illegal drugs? And then another question would be, should poor persons be allowed to use their food stamps to purchase them? Could federal authorities easily override state laws that declare mood altering substances illegal? And would authorities have to limit the amount of a drug someone could purchase, or could persons obtain unlimited quantities? And this decision-making matrix is part also of your textbook in chapter 8, and creating a decision-making matrix can help policy advocates select policies, and they can often construct a decision-making matrix by graphically portraying the options and the criteria that we identify. So for example, in the textbook, it talks about a social work intern and how this intern plays 4 options and 4 criteria on a decision-making matrix that organizes her options and criteria into a table for a program. So in this table, the intern places the different policy options that could be used to address the issue at hand. And then she uses different criteria to evaluate or analyze the different competing options and performance implications. So policy options can also be ranked qualitatively rather than quantitatively if you don't want to, again, use quantitative terms, and also like, for example, the matrix table. So you can use terms such as high, medium, and low to describe the relative merits of the options. So chapter 9 focuses primarily on presenting different strategies to present and defend proposals, and you can use this information for section 6 of your paper, which is the implementation stage. So policy advocates write proposals and convince others to accept them, and they can defend proposals through one-on-one discussions, presentations to large audiences, debates, memoranda, or reports and editorials. So these proposals can, or the different strategies that can be used can either be friendly or adversarial. So more friendly communication, through this communication, advocates try to decrease opposition and to reduce conflict, by using conflict reducing techniques. On the other hand, adversarial communication, a policy advocate tries to best a person or a group with opposing points of view through debates or hardball negotiations. While we may always want to use friendly, or those may be better to use, combining elements of both is often needed. So ideology has a great impact because it shapes the content and tenor of policy debates. So as you can probably imagine, debates are more likely to be adversarial when people have different ideologies. And the debates are often less conflictual when they focus on relatively small details that are likely to involve ideological values. So the political content also greatly influences the outcomes of the debate. So if one party has a majority, it can also set the terms of the debate, and the effects of the ideology on policy debates are sometimes muted by other factors, such as the tangible benefits received from a policy and personal experience. With the political context, for example, during the Trump administration, the majority party, including for the president, came more from a conservative ideology. So in this case, that political context greatly influenced many of the immigration debates, and which would be more against immigrants. So that would be the tone that was set for the majority of the debates during the Trump administration. So in combative persuasion, presenters use confrontive strategies to modify the opinions and actions of those who oppose them. Persuaders debate an adversary, hoping to convince observers to choose their point of view, and persuaders use one-on-one confrontation to change the adversary's position, and persuaders negotiate with the other party. So there are three parties in an adversarial debate, and those would include the persuader, the adversary, and the audience of observers. And the format would be that the persuader presents a proposal to and the adversary criticizes it and the persuader defends it. So that persuader hopes to change the minds of both their adversary and the audience. So coercive messages. So policy advocates may use coercive messages when they believe that the decision maker will oppose their position, and when cooperative message will not work. Coercive messages often begin with a formal demand that includes a threat, and this would include a litigation, protest, sending delegations to higher authorities, publicizing the issue through mass media. So negotiations are example of a friendly approach. So in this, both parties would imagine and brainstorm alternative solutions. One or both sides may make a concession without being asked, and a win-win solution is devised and mutual respect is maintained. So again, this can be used especially if when the ideology is similar in both of the negotiating parties. So policy advocates need to determine their audience. Audiences are more hostile to a message when they oppose its value premises and its fundamental argument. And audiences are less hostile when the message's values and logic approximate their own beliefs. And audiences are also less hostile when they have a flexible or undefined position. So again, so when knowing our audience, we need to understand our audience's beliefs, degree of motivation on an issue, fears and hopes, and likelihood of being influenced by a situation or historical factors, and degree of opposition to the message. So these are different tactics that can be used for different audiences. So to decrease hostility when we know that we are dealing with someone who is hostile against our proposal, we need to identify common values, perspective, and practical concerns that link us to our audience. We need to cite authorities or experts that the audience is likely to respect, and we need to discuss our own credentials or experiences that increase our credibility. And we need to present both issues or both sides of complex issues and freely admit the alternative viewpoints are inevitable and use humor and anecdotes. When we have an apathetic audience, we shouldn't overwhelm this audience with complex arguments or data, or we shouldn't tell them that they should care about this issue. Instead, we need to make the presentation interesting and lively, and we need to stress only a few themes or arguments, and we need to present simple arguments. And when we have expert audiences, we need to offer a variety of perspectives and data and evidence. We need to admit that the existing knowledge is imperfect and that the choices are difficult. We also need to discuss the merits of alternative options, and we shouldn't move quickly to a single solution. And we can pay tribute to the audience's expertise, and we can elicit their opinions or suggestions. Again, I hope this is helpful for your capstone assignment. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you so much.